What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, coming back at y'all with a 2-minute drill episode, April 13th, Tuesday. And man, we got some great storylines. We have a huge head coaching hire. We got another quarterback battle to break down. So, man, make sure you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're up over 80 subscribers now as of when we started this episode. So 20 more guys and 5 of y'all are going to get a big merch bundle from us, man. So keep up the support. We really appreciate all of y'all. But, man, let's go ahead and get into it, Brandon. I mean, we got Tennessee State. They continue the trend. They follow Jackson State after they hired Deion Sanders last year. They announced their intentions to hire Eddie George as their next head coach. He's going to replace Rod Reed. Now, Reed has coached this team since 2010. 57-60 record, but he did lead, Brandon, this Tigers team to a second-round FCS appearance in 2013. And that year, they also won the Black College National Championship. And this program is a storied one. I don't think a lot of people who are listening might know this, but Tennessee State has 12 claimed national titles. They also have 4 unclaimed national titles and 16 conference titles in their program history. John A. Merritt was really the coach who put this program on his back. He was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 1994. But Brandon, when you first heard about this news, what did you think about the hire, and how does Eddie George kind of fit into this mold of, a coach with no experience? Is he going to be able to be successful?
So, I mean, first, before I say anything else, just based off of what I heard on First Take today, that alone, just they told their coach this last game was his last, kind of right before the game, which is nuts. They're like, hey, you're out of here. We're hiring Eddie George. And I'm sure that he could do nothing but be like, I understand. Eddie George, obviously, this is a college football show. I hope you heard of Eddie George, but it's a college football show. So in case you haven't, insane player, played with Titans for most of his career. They have him on the scoreboard in Nashville. So I want to say they have his name outside of the stadium as well at Nissan Stadium. So this name alone carries a lot of weight. So it makes sense that Tennessee State would be pretty quick to hire a guy like Eddie George. Man, I understand he doesn't have a whole lot of coaching experience, if any at all. You and I were just looking at this right before the episode started, and we couldn't find anything. It was just a very limited coaching experience is what they said. I think it's worth the chance to give Eddie George a shot at your head coaching position, especially if you're Tennessee State right now. They're not doing great so far this season. I think they can only look up from here, and I think they're kind of following the trend that Jackson State set, which is hire a big-name NFL star to be the head coach of your team, see if you trend upwards. Jackson State looks to be trending upwards. Give it a little bit of time. I think this Eddie George hire is going to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. As Brandon noted, the biggest difference is that Eddie George has almost no head coaching experience. None head coach experience, maybe just a little bit of assistant. But Coach Prime was coaching high-level high school football. The high school team Deion Sanders was coaching is one of the best in the country year in and year out. Tennessee State released a statement, Brandon. They said they hope this hire spark the program and create positive momentum for the Tigers. And I think the recruiting aspect, like you mentioned, is definitely going to be sparked. The connections that George is going to have around the Nashville area where this program is located, and even stretched up into the Columbus, Ohio Midwest area due to his Ohio State connections, is also going to be great. And I think the interest, the hype, the ticket sales are all things that are going to be greatly impacted because this national spotlight is going to be on Tennessee State now. And for me, Brandon, the biggest storyline surrounding this hire for me is kind of like when I thought about with Deion Sanders is, who is George going to target for his staff? Because with no experience as a coach, you are going to have some experience surrounding you in key positions, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, director of player personnel, things like that. And I think that those hires are going to really determine whether this is going to be a success or a failure. Sanders went out and found strong recruiters. You look at Michael Pollock, T.C. Taylor, And he also had NFL guys like Jason Phillips and Dennis Thurman that have years of experience at the NFL level. I think George Brandon needs to make sure he keeps this balance between the college landscape and the NFL pipeline, because you need to have guys who know where and have experience recruiting, because it's a different world, Brandon. We covered this college football year round. If you don't have the connections, you're not going to be a successful recruiting program. You have to be able to get into the door of a lot of these high schools, but you also need those guys that can offer the path and vision to the NFL, because they'll listen. You know, the analogy I use, Brandon, it's like creating a pitching staff. You need those starting pitchers, the CFB guys who can bust down the door, carry you into those high schools, into those different states and stuff, and kick down those doors that are in the way. But then you need those specialists, Brandon, those closers that can bring it home and say, we're going to get you to the NFL, and this is how, because I've been there. I know the path. I know where I'm going. So, given all that, Brandon, what grade would you give Tennessee State for their hire of Eddie George right now?
I'm only going to him because he has no coaching experience here, but I'll get to that in a second. I'm going to give this one B plus. I think this is the right hire. I think you give a guy like Eddie George the keys to your not franchise, to your team, to your athletic team. What I'll say is that we do a lot of times see guys step straight off the field, go straight into coaching. Tennessee State, I mean, if you're going to start anywhere, I think Tennessee State's a good place to start. I mean, for any head coach. So who cares about head coaching experience? I was tempted to give them an A on this one, honestly, just because, I mean, this is Tennessee State. They have been great in the past. They've kind of struggled here recently. Eddie George, big name, a lot of pull in Tennessee. And I'll get back to that in just 1 second. Zach, I have one more question to ask you, but I want you to grade it first.
I think I have a B. I'm like a little bit below you. The main thing I think for me is that I love these type of hires because they're bringing attention to HBCU football, creating interest and momentum for future generations to learn and be invested in HBCU football. And I'm really excited to see what he does. I think the only reason, like you, I give it a B is because a B is that, like, okay, this is a good hire on the surface. Like, he's going to be great at recruiting. These kids are going to want to play for him, but man, if he doesn't get the right staff around him, this thing could go south real quickly. And so I want to say a B with a potential to be an A if he does what he's supposed to. And the other thing I'm interested in, how long do they give him, as a growing period? This is the first ever head coach. Are you willing to go through some growing pains the first 3-4 years until he gets his traction and then can be on the upswing? I think if you're a Tennessee State fan listening, you're gonna have to be patient with this hire, because I don't think it's going to be an immediate success out there on the field.
And I didn't mean, okay, I need to backtrack just a little bit. When I say I think Tennessee State's a good starting point, I don't mean that in the way that it could have been perceived. I meant that in the same way that if he would have started in D1 college football, I think Southern Miss would be a good starting point. I think South Alabama would be a good starting point. I think these smaller schools are a great starting point. I would kind of put those on the same level. What I'll say, Zach, I want to know what you think about, I mean, just pure head-to-head. What do you think about the power of Deion Sanders recruiting in the state of Mississippi and the surrounding areas? Because we've seen him flip these highly rated recruits compared to Eddie George and what he could potentially do. In my opinion, I don't think it's going to be the same because it's Prime versus Eddie George. I mean, 10 times out of 10, I'm going to put Prime. But I think in the state of Tennessee, we're going to see a little bit of a different story. Eddie George has, meant the world to this state, or at least the ones who pay attention to Tennessee Titans football. So I think that he's going to be just a sick recruiting force in the state of Tennessee, if not Georgia as well. I mean, he came from Georgia, so.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. It's hard because I don't think Coach Prime's main, recruiting place is going to be Mississippi, as shocking as that sounds. I think if you're comparing Mississippi with Deion to Tennessee with George, I think Eddie wins that debate every single time, because Coach Deion Sanders is not a Mississippi figurehead. Right. Eddie George is associated, like you say Tennessee Titans, I say Eddie George.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. I think he'll be really good in that Memphis, Nashville area. If there's some recruits that Memphis isn't utilizing, probably going to go to Tennessee State now. I think he can even recruit up there with Vandy too. I'm interested to see what Clark Lee does at Vandy. Of course, we know that, but I think Tennessee State is going to become a factor in Tennessee and Georgia. I think Deion's pipeline is Florida, Brandon.
Yeah.
I know that might sound crazy. He coached, he knows all the high schools down there. He has connections. That's where it's so talent rich down there. And if I think there's going to be a singular pipeline state for both of these guys, you're right. Eddie George, it's Nashville, Tennessee area. I think Prime is going to eat down in Southern Florida, where he spent a lot of his retired life and head coaching experience in terms of high school kids.
Yeah, and before we move on, I do want to say, I know you mentioned Vandy and Memphis. I would not be shocked at all if you saw 1-2 recruits every year being flipped from Tennessee or recruits who are supposed to go to Tennessee who end up Tennessee State now that Eddie George is the head coach.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a uptick in recruiting. So I actually, this is going to be a storyline tomorrow, but I want to just kind of preface it here. There were some comments from the Alabama A&M coach today that really, really got to me. I mean, they asked him about Deion Sanders, saying that he'll see him next year. And he said, "Oh, you think you're the only one in the SWAC that can recruit 5 and 4 stars?" He was like, "We'll see about that." He was like, "We have some too." And so I want to get to HBCU, SWAC recruiting tomorrow, but I think you're going to see an uptick across the HBCU schools in terms of the quality of players they get, because I don't think they're done hiring quality coaches, Brandon. I think Eddie George, no coaching experience is going to be. We're going to see how that works. I think there's going to be some big hires after this season. But let's get to our second topic, man. We're going to go to Florida. We just mentioned that's where the playground for Deion Sanders could be. Well, we got a quarterback battle potentially raging down there in Tallahassee. Me and Brandon have been critical of this program, not because we necessarily hate Florida State. I growing up, I was a Florida State over Florida fan because I just wasn't a big Florida guy.
I still am.
Yeah, we might still be. I mean, Brandon's not a big Florida guy, as you guys probably know, being there from Baton Rouge. But, Brandon, coming into this spring, it was Jordan Travis, Chuba Purdy, Tate Roadmaker, and Mackenzie Milton is like the 4-horse quarterback race. It's a perfect time to break this down. They had their spring game this past weekend, Brandon. Travis and Milton getting the majority of the snaps, both of them throwing for over 100 yards apiece, and both threw a nice touchdown. But after the spring game, Brandon, it looks like a 2 QB race to me. I mean, Mackenzie Milton, Jordan Travis, who actually was the starter down the stretch for the Seminoles. He saw action in 8 games last year, but just looking at Milton, guys, to give y'all a background of both of these prospects, he transferred from UCF. This was one of Brandon's favorite quarterbacks when we started the podcast. He's really high on Dylan Gabriel and Mackenzie Milton. A gruesome leg injury, man, kept him out for 2 years, but he finished top 10 in the Heisman voting twice, back-to-back years for the Black Knights. 3-star recruit out of Hawaii. Brandon, he's thrown for over 8,600 yards, 72 touchdowns, has over 1,000 yards rushing, 20 touchdowns, 2-time AAC Player of the Year. Brandon, this is the crazy thing. When I was doing research for this, he's top 5 in AAC history in pass completion percentage, passing yards per attempt, passing touchdown, passer efficiency, and touchdowns responsible for. And in case y'all don't know, he was the quarterback when UCF did have their undefeated season, beat Auburn in the Peach Bowl, and I guess were the quote-unquote national champions that year. And on the flip side, Jordan Travis, Brandon, was the quarterback who led them over UNC last year in their biggest win of the year, beat a top 5 UNC team down in Tallahassee, had some flash, was a 3-star recruit. Last year had 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and threw for over 1,000 yards, ran for 7. But Brandon, looking at these two guys, who do you like and why in the quarterback battle?
I don't even think it's close, Zach. I think Mackenzie Milton has to be the guy. And you want to know why? Because Mackenzie Milton, when he was at UCF, was better than any Florida State quarterback from the time he was there. He's been better than any Florida State quarterback since Jameis left, because Florida State has not had a quarterback since then. I honestly wouldn't be shocked, Zach. I know James Blackman transferred. They might try to get him back because that's how Florida State rolls. I'm not going to be shocked if they don't go with Mackenzie Milton. I just think he's the guy, man. I mean, the stats speak for themselves. UCF, I think, has been a better team than Florida State. I think if you put UCF into the ACC, all those years when they went undefeated 2 years in a row, they lost in bowl season that second year. You put them in the ACC, and they're beating Florida State year in year out. I mean, if they go head to head, Mackenzie Milton, man, is so talented, and that's one thing that UCF is so good at. If nothing else, they do recruit quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel's the same way. I mean, these guys just have rocket arms, and they're gonna be passing 50 times a game. That's UCF's that's UCF's offense. Florida State could use them a similar way, man. I just hope they don't. I hope they don't waste them.
Yeah, and when I look at it, I mean, Mike Norvell, man, at Florida State, I haven't been very high on his performance there, his coaching job there, but he did an outstanding job up there in Memphis, especially with quarterbacks like you look at Brady White. I believe he was still, I believe he was the offensive coordinator still there when Paxton Lynch was there. And so, I mean, you look at him who had some NFL success. I really like him. And Mackenzie Milton is exactly what he wants in a quarterback. And even looking at Brady White and Paxton Lynch, Mackenzie Milton's the most talented quarterback he's probably ever had in terms of arm talent, in terms of potential. And, you have one of the most decorated AAC quarterbacks, maybe right behind. I don't know. You could argue that he's better than Desmond Ridder, but he might be one of the best AAC quarterbacks of all time in terms of pure talent and what he accomplished. But I just don't see how. So, Brandon, this is what I'm having a hard time. Why recruit a kid like Mackenzie Milton with limited eligibility just to sit him on the bench? And I feel like Mackenzie Milton wouldn't have committed to Florida State if he wasn't, really almost handed the job, because he could have went to a lesser school or went to a different school and probably started immediately.
Oh my God! I mean, do you know how many? And it's not to say. Well, I guess most of our fan base are SEC fans. So I guess it is to say the SEC is more dominant than the ACC. He could have transferred to an SEC school and started immediately at most programs.
Arkansas. Because they just lost Felipe Franks. Florida, if they're not sold on Emory Jones, would have been an interesting spot too.
So yeah, and that's, I mean, Zach, you're telling me he wouldn't be competitive with Bo Nix? You wouldn't like to have him?
Brandon, you would be competitive with Bo Nix. Listen, any of our listeners, any of our subscribers right now would be competitive with Bo Nix. I don't want to hear it. That's not a good comparison.
So, it's bad. Okay, whatever. What I'm saying is that I agree with you, Zach. I think that he could have gone to not any program, but nearly any program in this country, and he would have gotten the starting job. So to go to Florida State, this team that's kind of struggled over the past decade, probably ever since Jameis left, honestly, they've struggled since then. I think that's a testament. I think he knows something that we might know. I'm not gonna say something that we don't know because we just speculated. I think that Mike Norvell has had talks to him, and he knows that he's going to be the starting guy.
I agree. I mean, when you got a guy who's done all that, and then you look at what Jordan Travis did last year, Brandon. He was dynamic on the ground, but so was Mackenzie Milton. I feel like Mackenzie Milton's that type of guy who's secretly athletic. He's like that Trevor Lawrence athletic, where it's like, oh, he can actually run the football. He can score with his legs. That's scary. And you look at Jordan Travis, who could do the same thing, but Brandon, 6 touchdowns into 6 interceptions with a 55% completion percentage, that gets you excited? I mean, and it's not like he has prototypical NFL size either. I'm not sold on Jordan Travis. I'm completely sold on Mackenzie Milton. And Brandon, I think it's Milton's job to lose. He has the highest ceiling of any choice here for head coach Mike Norvell. And listen, I don't know how you feel about this. This is my big takeaway from this battle, Brandon. I feel like Florida State fans are in win now mode. They're tired of not being competitive in the ACC. They're tired of not being relevant in the national landscape of college football. And I think Norvell understands this and will name Milton the starter. I'm assuming, Brandon, mid-June to July, we're going to get an announcement that Mackenzie Milton is a starter. I think this could be a smokescreen, and that I think Travis will be used, Brandon, goal line situations, some special formations, and he might be the quarterback of the future for Florida State after Milton eventually leaves. I just don't see how you recruit someone of Milton's caliber with that experience and not put him on the field, especially when you're trying to compete in the ACC.
I agree with you, Zach. Florida State fans have to be sick and tired of this. I mean, that's what a shame. It's like the biggest letdown since Tennessee in the 2000s.
Tennessee since 1998, man, just
Yeah.
a whole problem. I mean, they haven't even that. So it's weird, Brandon, because I know they made the playoffs in 2014, but even that season was kind of disappointing because they really didn't play anyone. And then once they got to the playoffs, they just got demolished. And like all I remember from the 2014 season was the backwards pass by Jameis. That's like the only memory I have of that Florida State team. And like that's their last good year, Brandon. And then ever since then, it has been a spiral. And I think the loss of Jimbo Fisher is just, I mean, it is hanging over like a black cloud in Tallahassee right now.
I definitely agree. I was going to move it backwards. I didn't know how to fit it in there. So good job. Kudos.
Oh, man. But guys, that is a wrap on this 2-minute drill, man. April 13th, Tuesday. I'm hoping y'all have a great week. But guys, y'all know it's the, normal plug-in at the end, man. Give this video a thumbs up. It helps us out. Make sure to subscribe. We are up over 80 subscribers, like I said earlier, man. Shout out to y'all for all the support. Man, y'all are killing us like on YouTube, man. We're almost to what 8,000 views, just got up over 7,000, man. Y'all have been murdering this. But guys, not only will this episode be up, we also have our draft corner up with the Washington football team with our guy Couch Coach coming out tomorrow. That'll be released at 11 a.m. This is out at 7 like usual. So make sure to go check out our Couch Coach episode, talking all things Washington football team, who they need to draft, their needs, the expectations for the season. I'm loving those draft corners right now, man. We'll be back later this week with some more Big 12 in 30 days. We got Texas and Kansas lined up, guys, so make sure to tune into that. Make sure to go back and check out our Jessica Cootie interview from Oklahoma. She was an awesome guest, man. Hoping to have her back on soon. But, guys, we will be back tomorrow with another 2-minute drill. But for Brandon, myself, the Blue Bloods, and the 2-minute drill, we are out.